Hello everyone and welcome to the official SWGT YouTube channel. My name is Sarusa. Today we have a special episode about Summoners War Update 8.0.9, player JSONs and how all that works, and a whole lot more. So let's get into it. Alright, so Com2us posted an update on September 14th early in the morning, update 8.0.9, and if we scroll all the way to the bottom, they include a single line with no details, no click information, nothing. That just says Game Security Enhancement Updates. So what does this mean? I'm sure, or rather you may or may not have seen, it's all over Reddit. Essentially, the game's 9 years old. We have had the luxury of using SWEX, which is a tool that's used, and I'll explain how it all works more later. But essentially, it's a tool that's used to basically get data out of the game. Whether it be your player JSON, whether it be siege, your siege match info, your road guild battle match info, your friends' visits, your runes, stuff like that. Unfortunately, Com2us doesn't have an open API or a common way for developers to interact with game data. So SWEX was created back very many years ago. I think it was like 8 or 9 years ago by Xandro, and it's been maintained all these years. And it's a tool that's used to basically get data out of the game, so we can build fancy charts and graphs and analytics, and use our data in all sorts of different ways. One thing I think, or at least my take is that you can't do everything in the game. Some things are going to be better on a PC or a tablet, where you can have a much more robust experience, where you can view analytics of your data, where you can view your runes and your friends' runes, and you can have all that collaboration. Because I firmly believe that the health of the game of Summoners War is not just playing the game and competing in the game. It's all the things that go on outside of the game. As with any sport, of course, talking about the game, and collaborating with your friends and looking at stats. Like, that's what makes people excited about the game. Just going in and playing the game and smashing some buttons, that's fun. But I don't know. As you look at, of course, the professional sports around the world, if you were to have somebody come up to bat for baseball and be like, "This is John Doe," and all the announcer has to say is, "Well, he has a red hat on and tan pants." That's not very exciting. Versus, "This is John Doe and he's batting at a 950, and last season he batted an 850 and he had 5 home runs so far this week," and whatever those stats are. Those are the exciting things. It is the detail of it that makes it very exciting. It's not just watching the game and or actually playing the game. So with the latest update, Com2us has essentially locked down all of the packets that are coming in and out of the game, to the point where SWEX is only able to pull your own player JSON, so you can do your rune and artifact tweaking with the online tool called Swap, and we'll get more into details about how all that works. But I don't know. It's a tough pill to swallow. And really, what spawned a lot of this is you had a guild in Korea that basically got caught. I'm not going to mention their name. Unfortunately, there are some guilds on some of the other servers like EU and Global that had some internal private tools. One of them was also public on the EU server, where they had kind of similar information, but not as detailed as what this Korean guild did. But basically they were publishing all of their enemies' runes online for anybody to see. What monsters were they running? How often were they running it? What was the speed tuning? Were they Vio? Were they Will? Were they Swift? Were they Nemesis? What artifact lines? There's a minus 20 water on this unit. Really just taking the game to an unhealthy place. That information is cheating as far as I'm concerned. When you can know the exact speed tuning of a unit, really it's super unhealthy for the game. And so Com2us made the security enhancement. They didn't tell anybody about it. They made no official notice. They made no anything. There was a post that was on Reddit that was translated from Korean. I think was talked about on the Korean server only. But it wasn't ever broadcast as a major announcement. And so we're kind of in the dark ages right now, where we've regressed ourselves back to 9 years ago, where players can only play the game and you can't get anything out of the game other than your player JSON. So yes, you can do swap, and that's great, but that's it. So what does that mean for SWGT? Interesting question. I've had I woke up on the 14th to over 1,000 messages on Discord. It took me hours to go through and talk about all these things with all these people. And so what does it all mean? We're gonna talk about it. I want to get more into detail about what is player JSON, how does it all work, how is it safe, how is it secure. I do want to of course make mention of the GitHub repository, that we do have all of the public source code for SWGT, so that everybody can see that, of course, that we're what we're doing is honest and truthful, and it's available for anybody to see. There's nothing to hide. And so we'll talk more about that later. But I mean, essentially right now, SWGT personal itself works perfectly fine, only because that works off of the player JSON. Yes, you have to manually update. Either you upload a file, or when you force quit Summoner's War and then reload the game. That's the only time. There are no other packets. And again, I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But essentially, all of the Siege, all of the World Guild Battle, all of the Labyrinth, all the Monster Subjugation, all the leaderboards, basically, all of our live stats that we've been enjoying and loving so much for almost 4 years now is just completely offline and gone dark. And as far as all the SWGT guild sites, same thing. Anything that's involving player JSON is going to be working perfectly fine. All of the monster search tools, all of the rune graphs, all of the recruitment, all of the player JSON and team builder and siege tournament calculators and all the map builders, all those functions are still working. We have a little bit of a glimpse of hopes. Com2us posted a message yesterday on the 15th, just basically saying that, they made an enhancement update on the 14th. They didn't talk about it very much. They just sort of did it. And what they did was basically slamming the hammer down, and they closed the door entirely, and then you can only look through the keyhole, right? That's kind of what they did. But they have recognized, we have had a very big outreach on Reddit. I have my post, which has, I think, 407 upvotes, or 419 actually, upvotes as of this video here. Xandro's post has 104 upvotes. So we have a lot of really good outreach, and so Com2us actually, between the posts on Reddit and all the work that I've been doing in the background, talking with basically every person that I can possibly talk to that I know of that has contacts anywhere on the Korea server, anywhere on the EU server, anybody who is a content creator. I've talked with Shinzo, I've talked with Childus, I have talked with some of the SWC contestants, and some of the top guild leaders across the world on all the servers, just to push, because personal opinion is this is unacceptable. I do think that the actions that the Korean guild did were unacceptable, and Com2us definitely is punishing them. I heard that they are permabanning the person who actually wrote it, and then the entire guild is basically banned from all content for the next month. And the site essentially has to be taken down, or I think they're going to be threatening legal suit or something like that. I don't know all the specifics because, again, they didn't publish it to anything. But Com2us did respond back yesterday, just saying that they are aware that game data is being abused, and even though it's been 9 years and it's been happening for a while, I talked with Shinzo and Xandro, and Xandro let them know 7 years ago in writing. He also had a video chat conference last year to let them know again that that this data exists. It's readily accessible. It's not hard to find. I know that Shinzo sent out a document to the developers. I think it was 3 years ago. He said same thing. He actually had sent it over to me. It is very thorough. Me personally, I've reached out to Com2us 13 times. I've never received a single response from them. I've actually spent upwards of about $500 of my own personal money sending them letters to Korea, to California, just to try and speak to anybody, just trying to help. And these game packets, they contain dirty information, and I don't want to just publish it all over Reddit and make it broadcastly readily available, because that could be, again, a lot of this data is easily available and it can be easily accessed. And so, if you publish something like this broadly, and they don't do anything about it, well, now you're going to be harming the game. So I've been teetering on it for basically many years. It's been 3 to 4 years now that I've been working on it on SWGT, probably a little bit more than that, because I was working on it prior to it being actually released in the own, because we had it as an internal tool for our own guild way back when. So, but anyways, Com2us did recognize that there are some third-party developers like myself that are providing tools that are useful, and they are going to take a look, or rather a second look at all of the packets. There's no timeline on anything, but they are going to take a second look and see if they can open up some of the packets that they deem as quote-unquote healthy, to sort of bring back the tools that are really helping the game. Because SWGT, it's a stat and analytic tool. It does have some guild management things that, of course, the game should have anyways. But again, not everybody can do everything in the game, and people have to work and live and everything else. So people don't want to be in the game every second of every moment of every day. All right, so how does the game data work? What is the actual JSON? How does SWEX come into play? Let's talk about that. So here's your phone or tablet or whatever it is, and here are the Com2us servers. When you fire up the game starts sending out commands out to the server, and the server responds back. There are a few hundred different commands that the game can actually request information from. As far as I know, the game is request-response based, so they're not actually pushing data down to the device. I think the device has various different requests that basically pull the servers for new data on given intervals. For example, like your siege battle update. I know that they used to have that as every 30 seconds. Now it's every 10 seconds. So the game is extremely chatty as far as the JSON data goes. Actually, if you look at your cell phone data usage on cellular, you'll see that it uses quite a bit of data. So kind of interesting, but this is how it currently is today. All right, so what does a JSON even look like? So this is actually one of the commands, and we'll talk more about commands and how they work and how they operate in a few minutes here, but just wanted to give you a simple example. This is a guild 10 info packet that comes out of SWEX, that comes a part of the game. This is actually your guild member list. So these are all your players. Com2us calls them wizards, but this is actually your guild member list, what guild you're currently in, what date did you start, and what's your current reward state. I never really figured out what the reward state was. I believe this might be whether they press the button in the game to say, how when you go into the guild screen, there's a button to collect, I think it is the 20 energy. I think that this is the variable for yes or no, whether that person did or not. And then who am I, as far as what my wizard ID is, and then a overall date and time stamp and then the actual time zone of the packet. That's kind of it. Like, this is a very basic JSON packet. I just wanted to give a simple sample of what these things look like. All right, so let's talk about commands. As I said, that there are a few hundred commands in the server itself, or rather in the game itself. And so the commands are the different ways that the game can get information out of the Com2us servers. Because the game is request-response based and nothing is pushed down to the devices, the only way that you get new information is if the game requests more information from the server. So that typically is either on a background task, such as like your siege battles, your world guild battles, stuff like that, and or the player is actually pushing buttons in the game. So like, for instance, to update siege, you would go into siege, you would press the info button, right? And then you would press on the attack button, and that would show you all of the various different attacks. And if you tap on the defense button and the battle records and the contribution, every single one of these buttons is a different call out to the server to get more information to populate these screens. So that's what the commands are. And each one of the commands there's a request that goes out, and there's a response that comes back. And the response that comes back, or rather actually the request is in a JSON request, and the response is actually also in a JSON requests. And SWEX actually allows us to have access to both the request and the response. A lot of the requests, I don't know, I've never found them any bit useful. The requests are basically passing in a serialized token, and then basically what command it's actually going after. and then that command has to go off to a specific endpoint or server, right? The endpoints and servers are not available for us as developers to actually see, but we can see the request going out and the response coming back. And so people like myself have gone through and deciphered all of these JSON packets to make useful information out of them. So for instance, the info button, when you press here, as soon as you come in and you press the load button, these are what are called 3MDC battle logs in SWGT. So we actually record this, like for instance, this specific line would get recorded in two different spots. One for the siege, right? Because this is a siege battle. So for a given siege battles are defined by a match ID, a siege ID, and a guild ID. On this given match, for this given date and timestamp, for this given player, they won this battle. They were attacking, in this case, they were attacking Shield 12, and they actually won. In the newer packets, they actually include the defense units and the counter units that were actually used. So of course we store and use all that nice rich information for stats and win rates and that kind of stuff. And so this packet, again, it gets recorded into Siege, and then it gets recorded into the 3MDC battle logs as well. All right, so how does SWEX work, and how does the SWGT plugin work, and how is it different from the other version? So SWEX is a proxy. It actually sits in between the device and the Com2us server. And so whenever the device is reaching out for data, it talks to SWEX. SWEX sees the command or response come in, and it sends off the packet off to Com2us. Com2us responds back, and SWEX says, hey, here's your data. And so because we have a proxy, Xandro has made it available for developers to essentially do plugins, right? You just drop the SWGT plugin into your plugins folder, and now SWGT can listen to these packets coming back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so, for instance, when we press the info button and we're going off to the attacks, that packet's going out, and when it comes back with a specific command. The command gets listened to, and SWGT actually has three plugins. But the plugins listen to those commands, and there are specific commands that we need in order to produce all of the data. Whenever the SWGT plugins see a command that it actually needs, it sends a copy up to the SWGT server for processing. And now, not every packet that gets sent is sent as raw. Some packets are pruned and cleaned out because they may or may not contain data that's not healthy for the game, or honestly, some of the packets are just flat out bloated and just contain too much data. Obviously, with SWGT being so broadly used across the world with so many users, reducing our data usage has been a really big push. What people don't realize is, because the game is so chatty, that stacks up quickly. Last month SWGT saw over 37 terabytes of new data. That's just ridiculous when you start thinking about it. And so SWGT, the plugins do have built-in caches. I do a ton of basically data pruning and data matching. And then on the server side, I also have a bunch of implementations to basically not hit up the database or not do updates if somebody has already updated the same information in the same, I think it's every 60 seconds on some packets and 30 on some other packets. Because again, like Siege doesn't need to be updated every 10 seconds. There was no benefit to that, and that just basically spams my server. It spams, it's basically burning through all of the data and transfer that I have to pay for and everything else. So, a lot of these packets are cached, and if there's no differences, no changes, then it just basically ignores those packets. And if they're new, then it sends them. But then things like battle logs, some of the packets do contain, your players or your enemies' runes. We don't even touch those elements. We actually create our own custom JSON packets from the packets from Com2us. So we actually take the copy coming back. We actually prune out, or rather, we basically just go through and pluck the elements that we need into our own custom packet to pull the actual defense. And that's actually in our plugin. Again, it is readily and publicly available for you to see. We only pulled the actual defense units, and that's it. There's no other element that we pull. We don't pull runes, we don't pull artifacts, we don't pull skill ups or anything else. So that's kind of how it all works. I mean, it's honestly very simple. It's pretty easy to set up. I personally think that SWEX is a necessary evil. I don't particularly like having to run a proxy all the time. That's how it all works. So just wanted to share how this all looks, and hopefully this is useful. All right, before I wrap up here, I want to do a shout out to 3 other sites. Swap, obviously, being the rune optimizer from Xandro. He writes SWEX and Swap. Swarfarm, of course, which is our beastery, skill trees. They have a whole bunch of APIs that, of course, SWGT uses. And then the SW Arena as well. It's basically the opposite of SWGT. It is Arena and RTA type based. Just give some useful stats and that kind of thing. So I just want to give a shout out to these 3 guys. They're doing really great work. And really without Swap, without Swarfarm, SWGT wouldn't even exist. So a big shout out and thank you for all these guys. So where do we go from here? Well, it's a great question. We're actually making pretty good traction. The fact that we have had Com2us actually give us an official statement recognizing that there are third-party programs out there is huge. They have been ignoring the third-party platform for years. They actually say it right here in the action notice itself. And so just the fact that they're actually recognizing that there are third-party tools and that they do want to support them is obviously huge for the platform. It's huge that, the entire community, and it's honestly humbling. Like, it's just, I can't even begin to tell you. Like, it's, for years, SWGT development is it's a thankless job. Obviously, I'm putting in tens of thousands of hours into building a platform that everybody uses and everybody loves it and everybody uses it. But then you don't, other than complaints about things not working or other than, new ideas, which of course I obviously love, you don't really hear much. It's not, but then at the same time, it's humbling and heartwarming to see, when you look at in the public chat, you see, all the time, you see SWGT links for recruitment. That's just absolutely amazing. The fact that I've been able to build a tool that everybody uses and it's really made a difference in the game is obviously huge for me. So I'm going to keep on fighting and pushing. I don't see myself stopping doing that. If they decide to never update or never release any of these packets, we'll have to see what changes from there. But, and then maybe SWGT Personal just becomes the new big thing. And, that just is the big push, and there's nothing that we can do. But, I'd love to see our packets come back to being in use. Again, the plugins for SWGT, they will be in the link. They are publicly available. We have nothing to hide. There are 2 packets that we use, which are the battle starts. You can look in source code and see, and you can look into the commit history and see, no changes have ever been made, other than pulling in which defense units are being used. So, a Commune, a Vigor, and Skogul. Let's go back to old school. Overall siege defenses from many years ago. Other than those defenses, nothing is being pulled out of those packets as far as the enemy units goes. So, everything else is healthy for the game. All the stats and the leaderboards and the win rates and just all the analytics for the guild leaders to be able to just track all their players. It's just one of those things. It's always been a big thing for me when I ran a guild many years ago. You have 30 players. How do you keep people? How do you keep 30 people accountable for a good level of performance that's fair for all the rest of the players? Because otherwise, you have turnover, and that just makes guild management so much more difficult. Having to record all these matches and battle logs and everything else manually in Excel spreadsheets, it's such an archaic thing. I mean, it's stepping us back to the actual Dark Ages here. It is crazy. So I think we're going to be okay. My gut feeling tells me that hopefully they'll just fix the packets that are unhealthy for the game. And honestly, SWGT can live without those 2 starting packets. Now that they've added the counters and the defenses in the packet and the info button that I had showed earlier, honestly, we can live without the actual start packets nowadays. And we'll have all the rest of the functionality that we already do today. I hope that they just, in a perfect world, they would reach out to me, and I would be very happy to hop onto a video chat or onto a screen sharing or video call or voice call, whatever. I mean, I am happy to work with them and help them understand what are we doing, where are we using the data, how do we use the data. I don't think it's healthy for Com2us just to leave all the packets locked and then just unlock a handful, because that would be really difficult. Obviously, on my side, like if they come up with new content and those packets aren't available, like I don't have any contacts for Com2us, so how do I get them unlocked so we can do something with the content? So I just, honestly, there's probably like 7 or 8, I think, packets that are actually contain, a quote unquote dirty data. And in those packets, they could literally just encrypt those elements and be done. Like they probably spent more time locking down all the packets than just changing those 7 packets. So, hopefully Com2us will make some simple changes and sort of revert their patch changes from 8.0.9. There's a lot of other alternatives. They can open up APIs. It'll be readily accessible for all developers to use. They could start a developer program, which I think would be fantastic. I would love interaction and a medium to reach out to Com2us. That way, if I see things that are not good, or if I need things from them to make things, or if they see things that they don't like, they can reach out to me. I don't know. I just think that there's so much room for improvement. But I mean, again, personal opinion from what I've seen in the community, SWGT helps them. It helps their bottom line, right? By providing all these tools and analytics, we're helping their bottom line. We're making them money. It costs them nothing. My Amazon AWS bill is more than my mortgage. Like it is ridiculous. And that's why we have the Patreon, and I run SWGT as essentially a nonprofit. I think if they completely shut this stuff down and if they don't open it back up, I think they're going to hurt their own game. And so for whatever it's worth, that is my 2 cents. We'll see where it goes. I think we're going in a positive direction from what I have going on in the background that I can't talk about yet. We have a good shot here. We have a good shot at making a real positive change. We have a real shot at getting things back. I'm pretty hopeful, but I'm trying not to be too hopeful too at the same time, because again, it's Com2us. And that's it for today. I just wanted to say thank you to all of our Patreon members who have subscribed to SWGT. That helps to support the platform and get all the nice features. And don't forget, as with all YouTube videos, smash those like buttons, and I'll see all of you on the battlefield.